All right, welcome everyone to the fifth class, actually. Yeah, fifth class. All right, so today we're discussing design terms, and I need you to understand this because it's going to be foundational, because this is going to be foundational for the kind of things that you will be able to do. So if you don't know what they're called, it's difficult for you to find them. If you don't know what they're called, and another reason why it's important to learn these design terms is it's one of the things that help you stand out as a professional, right? So I mean, there's the idea of this course is to ensure that you're nowhere close to basic. All right, so you're very, very close to being an actual professional. All right, of course, it's going to take a lot more from you in terms of learning and other things like that, but at the end of this course, you should have a good understanding of how this works. All right, so I'm going to share my PDF. Share screen, PDF. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start from typography, right? Now, there are many things that you might mix up together. There's typography, there's fonts, there's typeface, there's all of those many words that people use interchangeably, right? But typography in itself is majorly about the arrangement of text or type in a readable and visually appealing way, right? So, for example, if I say, I want a typography design for my book cover, all right? What I'm saying is, I want you to give me a design that has only text on it. Maybe not only text, but majorly text on it. Okay? Did you get that? So typography is usually basically arrangement of text in a design. So making sure that you arrange the text very nicely, that is the whole idea of typography. All right. So text or typography, right? If it was text, it would have been textography, but typography. So type is another word for text, right? So I can't see your text, it means I can't see what you wrote, right? Now, there's a whole analysis of the whole typography of a type, right? So now, I mean, at this stage, it might not be too necessary for you to focus on all of this, but just so you know it, and in the future, when I say something like, oh, we need to change from this, or if I say, oh, the descender is too low, I need to create more space, you have a good idea what I'm talking about, right? Number one, you see the distance between the highest point of everything you're writing is called your cap height. All right. When you have a text like this, someone's mic, who is that? Okay. All right. Sorry, I've muted person. So when you have, and please let me know if at any point you can't hear anything, just raise up your hand. I will summon you so you can speak up. All right. Now, here, right, when you have text like this and you have this thing coming out here, is the arm, it's called an arm, right? The long hand here is called a stem, right? So it's like a tree, a stem with an arm, basically. Those are just terms used. Here you have a tail. So I mean, here is also a tail, right? You have tails for some particular text like wine, all right? Here you have a serif. Remember I explained what a serif is the extra bit of text that comes out, extra bit of extra bits, yeah, that comes off the edges of a type of text, right? And those kind of fonts are called serif fonts, right? So, but it's called a serif. So when you don't have a serif, it's called sans serif, right? And that's why you have those clean fonts that don't have the serif, all right? So don't forget. Now, another thing here, we have the bold, right? Now, for example, if I say something like, I want you to create a logo for me, and I want you to put the O in the bowl of the C, right? What I mean is that I want you to put the O inside that space. So you know how C is like a curve or like a bowl. right? That space is called a bold. So basically that's what it is. So like an O, for example, is a what's the word? An infinite bowl, right? So the roundness, that circular thing is called a bowl, okay? This thing you have here is called an air. It mostly happens in serif fonts, all right? Here, this is what we call a terminal, right? It's like what comes out is towards the end, all right? Here is called a loop. It doesn't happen for every font, it's usually for like G. And then when you have some particular types of, sometimes when people graphically illustrate Y, they can give Y a loop, right? But it's called a loop, all right? Then here is called the descender, and this is called the ascender. So you have a good idea of what it looks like. P, what's coming down is the descender, what's going up is the ascender, all right? Now, this thing here is called the X height, and the X height is basically the most prominent part of your type where you have most of the elements, especially in small letters, okay? So that's your X height. Then your baseline is where most of is the beginning of your X height. So your X height starts from your baseline towards the median, all right? So if you see here, this is called the X height, and this is baseline and median, all right? So between the baseline and the median is called your X height, all right? And then the highest point is called your cap, okay? Now, kerning is that space in between every text, okay? So between TYPO, that space is called kerning. So if I say increase the kerning, it means make the space bigger. If I say reduce the kerning, it means make the space smaller, all right? Is anybody confused at this point? Do you understand everything I've explained so far?
The kerning, is it not the same with line space? Or what space or letter space?
I think kerning is letter spacing.
Yes. It's called letter spacing on Canva.
Letter spacing on Canva.
Yes.
Okay.
But as a professional word for letter spacing. Okay.
Okay.
Let me go.
Is there any other name you could call?
Okay. Come again. Is there any other spaces can be called? Any other name? Well, those are two major names that I know: kerning and letter spacing. Right. So letter spacing is like the non-technical name for kerning, basically. All right. So body copy. Right now, if you remember when I was explaining hierarchy, I explained headline. Right. Header. Sorry, I explained header, which is the biggest. Subheader, which is the second biggest, and then your body copy. So the body copy is the major part of your text or publication or anything at all. So when you have, like, on your website, for example, this thing that I'm reading, like in this website now, this is the body copy, all right? And then this is what the subheading. What we had on top is called the headline or header, okay? So in a body copy, in this layout now, what you have here is called the body copy, right? So typically when you're trying to explain because sometimes you want to use different types of fonts for different things. So I want my header to have this font, I want my subheader to have this font and this size, and then I want. Okay, right? So it's good for when you want to classify all the different types of fonts that you want to have, or different types of sizing or dimension that you want to have for different types of different categories of your fonts. Okay. Does someone want to ask a question? Okay, no. All right. So now, display type, right? It's another name for header. Okay, so it's like the type that's designed with the objective of attracting attention. All right. So most times when you have a poster design, right, or when you have any type of design at all, the display type is usually the header or the headline. All right. So look at this, right? This display type, right, is acting like the header, but of course, this is so much bigger than a header in typical sense. Typically, when you're doing the hierarchy and you have header, subheading, and body copy. That's on the general sense. But sometimes you design a poster, you don't have the luxury of doing that because it's not like a book or anything like that. It's actually like a poster. Okay, so your display type is like the biggest attention grabbing font on your design. All right, so we're still going to design a poster. So when I use a word like display type, I need you to know what I'm talking about. All right. Next is hierarchy. I've explained hierarchy already. Okay, I've explained hierarchy already, right? So hierarchy is the visual display of elements or arrangement, sorry, of elements in a way that signifies importance. So making the biggest thing very big, making the smaller things less big, right? So you can see here, heading, subheading, and body copy, all right? Almost every design needs 3 levels of typography hierarchy, right? It's guiding the eyes of the user or the reader. Okay, I've explained hierarchy before, but just in case you did not remember, hierarchy is basically, it's like hierarchy is like there's a hierarchy in literally everything. There's king, there's chief, then there's who? Or there's president, vice president, members of cabinet, house of rep, you know, that hierarchy. You need those kind of hierarchies in your design as well. So making sure that your headings are the biggest, your subheadings are next biggest, and then your body copy is much smaller than both of them. All right. Okay, so I explained kerning already when I was using that display. So it's adjustment between 2 characters in your type, right? It's commonly used, is usually basically is most times where you're trying to achieve some type of effect with your text, right? Now, sometimes you want it to be bigger, sometimes you want it to be smaller, okay? So depending on what you want to achieve, all right? So you can see here that now here, you can see that this text, you see this line here, right? Now, okay, let me explain this. When you have space between your text, all right? Normally, when you type ABC, when you type typically on your design, right? Many times it can come off as weird, and I will explain that to you. You know what? Let me open up my Canva, right, and show you what I'm saying. So sometimes some types of designs or some layouts, when you type something on your, when you type on your text, right? When you type something like, okay, I'm coming, you know, because of time, we're already running out of time. I'm going to explain this tomorrow, right, practically, but let me just pay attention with this so that we can move on. And I'll make reference to this. And I need you to read this again. I'll send you this PDF document, all right? It's also a website link. I can send you to it as well, all right? So kerning is basically, you can manually adjust the spacing between your text to make it look better, okay? So, for example, if you use this type and you write wave, right? Normally, this is what it's going to look like. But it feels like the spacing is not equal, right? And it's because of the type of fonts that it is. Some fonts don't have this problem, but some other fonts do. But you want to manually adjust them to ensure that they look aesthetically pleasing to the eyes and they don't look like, so if you look at this, for example, you can see here that it looks as if there's big space, and then small space, okay? But here, we've moved W closer to A and then A closer to V. So it looks as if this space is lesser. If you look here now, you see that this space is much bigger than this space, right? So it's like manually adjusting the spacing between your text, right? So that thing is called kerning, right? The art of doing that is called kerning, all right? But that space is also called kerning, okay? So I hope you do not mix that up, right? Now, leading is also called leading sometimes, right? It refers to the space between lines of type, okay? What that means is basically, I'm trying to write name on Canva, I explained it already. Line height, okay? So leading is basically line height, All right, so reducing the height between each line is tightening the leading. Increasing the height between each line is losing the leading. Okay, so leading or leading is pronunciation actually, right? So that space, right, is called leading. So when you increase it, you are loosening it. When you reduce it, you're tightening it. Okay. Sometimes, depending on what you're trying to achieve, right? Many times in your body copy, right, your leading is usually not very tight, but it's not usually very open, right? But many times in your subheading, you might have a looser leading, right? And then many times also in your header or your headlines, you might have a loose leading, all right? But most times in your body copy, your leadings are usually not too tight, but not as spaced out as you would have on many other types of text. And also depending on what you're trying to do, right? If you're designing a book, for example, I don't expect to use a really, really wide leading, all right? But if you're designing a poster, right, and you're just trying to create some really nice, interesting contrast with the different types of type on your design, then you can play around with the leading to make it loose or tight, depending on what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so try to find a nice balance between making it loose and making it tight. All right, now tracking. Tracking concerns the space between letters, right? So when we track the bodies of text, we're adjusting the space between each letter. All right, so don't confuse tracking with kerning, because tracking concerns the adjustment of, kerning is the one that concerns the adjustment of individual spaces. So let me explain tracking and kerning. Tracking is general, right? Kerning is individual. Okay, so what that means is, for example, if I write typography as a text and I want to reduce the tracking, okay, it's going to affect every single thing in that type I've written, right? Meanwhile, if I was going to do kerning, kerning doesn't affect everything on the line. Okay, so kerning is more manual, tracking is more automated in a sense. So in tracking, you're affecting all the spaces between all the texts equally. Okay, but in kerning, you are manually adjusting different types in your body of text. Do you understand? Let me know if it's confusing, or let me know if I need to explain it again.
I don't understand.
You don't understand? Okay. So
I'm sorry, let me just try and see if I get
I'm
it.
confused.
okay.
So what you're trying to say is, for instance, let's use the wave, the word wave that you showed us earlier.
Yes.
So let's say the distance between W and A is much compared to the distance between A and V.
Exactly.
So kerning is you trying to make a balance between the W and the A such that it adjusts with A and V.
Yes.
While tracking is you automatically adjusting everything.
Every single one. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right,
exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. Does everyone understand now?
Yeah. That's exactly what I was saying.
Understand better.
If you don't understand it, tell me. I can go over it again. But if you do, let me know. If you don't, let me know.
Please go over
So
it again.
tracking is adjusting all the spaces in the disney automatically. But so kerning, what do you call it now?
Okay, you know what?
Kerning
Let me just do it on Canva here, for example, right? I'll add a text, right? Let's say I want to write typography, right? Now, because we're using Canva, right? Typically, if I was using something like Illustrator, it would be easy to do kerning, right? But it's not very easy to do kerning in Canva because kerning is more manual, right? So let me use a serif font, for example. Okay, no, I'm going to click here, search here, type serif. Okay. Now I want to use a serif font that has a very, very sharp serif. Okay, not sharp, but big. All right, so let me find what I might have to use a pro font, but just to explain the point I'm trying to explain. So let me try Bodoni. Okay, right. Now, when you look at this, it looks as if the space between T and Y is too small, is too much, and the space between H and Y is too small. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. Now,
Yeah.
now, right? Let me duplicate this. Okay. If I want to do tracking, all right, tracking is basically adjusting the letter spacing at the same, like, you know, on Canva, letter spacing affects everything at the exact same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But kerning is not going to affect everything. If I wanted to do kerning, what I'll do is I'll remove the T, right? Paste it separately, then drag it by myself to ensure that it's closer. And then do the same for Y. And you can see how my X height,
The alignment.
do you understand? The alignment is just helping me to make sure that I don't lose guard, right? So let me just adjust it perfectly, right? So now, obviously, because I've adjusted the kerning, this typography font here looks better than this. They have the exact same letter spacing, but I adjusted the kerning. Do you understand?
Yes.
So kerning is more individual, right? Tracking is general. Tracking is going to affect everything. All right. So tracking is exactly like letter spacing, but kerning is like individual letter spacing, basically. Do you understand?
Okay. Yes, I
So-
Okay,
do.
I'm sorry. I'd like to ask,
Okay.
why is kerning better than tracking? Because
Well, no, it's not better than. It depends. It
Okay.
depends. So it depends. It's not better than, it just depends. So for example, most times you have to use kerning when you're using serif fonts because of the arm. So like the arm of this T now is what's making it look like this, right? But if
Okay.
you're using a sans serif font, for example, you most likely not have to bother about kerning because the spaces are almost equidistant, so you don't have to adjust any kerning. So kerning is
Right.
not something you do every single time. Okay.
Right.
Exactly. So kerning is not better than or less better than. It just
Okay, it's contextual.
Yes,
It's
it's
okay.
circumstantial. Yes, you don't have to.
Okay.
You don't have to kern every time.
Okay. Okay. As the need arises,
It has
right?
arises, exactly. So, for example, if I use this exact same font and all I wrote was pograph, right?
Right.
It doesn't need any kerning because everything looks nice.
Right.
Do you understand? So
Yeah.
it only affects some particular fonts and some particular when some particular letters are together, like W
Okay.
or M, those kind of fonts, they have weird kernings.
Okay. Thank you, David.
All right, you're welcome.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I've explained this. Now I've explained X height earlier. So X height is the average height of lowercase letters, basically, right? So it gets its name from looking at the X of any letter. So any letter you find, any font you find, the height of the X is usually the X height, right? The X height is usually the height of the X is usually the X height. So most times the height of the X is usually the same height with the bowl of the A, the bowl of the P, the bowl of the B, the bowl of the. You see, I'm using design terms to explain the parts of the fonts now. All right, I'm sure you know what a bowl is. I explained that already. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can see that here. So the X height is basically most times it's usually always the general height of smaller case letters. All right. Ascender, I explained an ascender already. Right. The ascender is part of the lowercase letter that extends above the X height. obviously it tells you that the descender is the part of lowercase letters that extends below the X height. All right. So there's not too much fussing around this. Ascenders are all these things here. This yellow place is called the ascenders, these things. Okay. And then descenders are the parts of lowercase letter that extend below the X height. All right. Some of these examples are you're going to see here, right? So this J, this P, this Q, this Y, right? And because you know how when you're writing, if you remember in primary school, if you're obviously most of us are in Nigeria, when they taught us how to use that letter writing book, right? It always had 4 lines. All right. Those 2 lines in the middle are your X height.
Okay.
Then the space up is for your ascender. The space down is for your descender. Can you remember?
Yes. Remember.
We get, I can't remember, but we get.
Exactly. So that's how it is. Now, exactly. I mentioned widows and orphans when I was designing one of the quotes. If you were in the last class, and not many people were around for the last class, but in the last class, I explained having a widow and an orphan, right? So let me explain it here. Basically, right, widows and orphans is a design term that refers to words or short lines that appear by themselves at the bottom or the column of a type, right? So it's always good to cover your body copy before finishing up and remove when they appear. All right. So can you see things like this? All right. So widows and orphans, it means that they have been separated from their main family. All right. So ensure that when you have your design, you adjust your fonts, you adjust your type to ensure that you don't have any orphans or widows. Okay, it just looks weird. It feels like out of place when you have things like this. So those are what they are called. Make sure that you avoid them as possible as you can. Sometimes to avoid them, you might need to reduce the line spacing. Sorry, not line spacing. Okay, so look at this now. This right
Font
here.
size.
Come again.
We should reduce the font size.
Yeah, sometimes you might need to reduce the font size. Sometimes you might need to reduce the letter spacing. Some other times you might need to reduce the line spacing. For example, if you look at this, right? If you had reduced the line spacing, letter spacing, sorry, this UT would have come into somewhere here, and then every other thing will reduce. Here, if you had reduced the line spacing, this would have come to somewhere here. So, I mean, this is a good enough number of text to come under here, right? If it was only this now, it would have been bad, but since it's almost half of the column size, it's a fair amount, but it starting on another line is what is not great. Do you get? So avoid things like that, right? Serif typeface is a typeface that has a small decorative stroke, right? And those strokes are called serifs, and they are found at the end of horizontal and vertical lines, right? I explained this already. All these things here are called serifs. I don't think I need to explain what the serif is to anybody in this class after all these years. All right. Sans serif as well. I explained sans serif already. It's a typeface that has no serif strokes. Sans means no serif. All right. So they look more modern and cleaner. Most times you hardly ever have kerning issues with sans serif fonts because they are usually straight and they don't have these extra decorative edges. Too much decoration and they cause wahala sometimes. All right. So these are obviously sans serif fonts. Okay. Now, script typefaces, they mimic cursive handwriting, but they tend to look elegant, personal. They're more casual, also depending on how embellished they are. Some script typefaces are more embellished than some other script typefaces. All right. So this is called mission script. If you go on Canva, you see different types of script fonts. Right. So just find the one that suits what you want. All right. Script fonts are different from handwriting fonts in the sense that they have more cursiveness to them, right? Handwriting fonts are more playful, all right? So slab serif typefaces. Slab serif typefaces have a thicker serif, right? So because of how thick the serif is, it's called a slab serif. All right, so it's a typeface with thicker, blockier serifs, and we commonly use them in headlines, but you hardly use them in body copy because they are really, really big. So it's going to be difficult to be reading like big text. But these type of slab serif fonts or typefaces are very, very good when you have headlines or with your display type. Remember display type, all right? So legibility is like the measure of how easy it is to distinguish one letter from the other, right? And it has a lot to do with the type of typeface that you use and how you use it. So for example, simpler serif fonts are usually easier to read with smaller body copy, right? When you have a lot of text, obviously, it makes no sense to use a handwriting or a script font because they are less legible. But serifs and sans serifs are more legible typefaces, okay? So ensure that you pick the most appropriate depending on the purpose for which you're serving. Less legible typefaces like handwriting, cursive, you can use them maybe if you're having like a one-liner and you just want that one line to stand out, all right? So alignment is basically lining up of elements to achieve balance, order, and a more logical layout. So there are 4 types of typographical alignments. In this context, typographical, but the center, left, right, and justified. All right, so they have their own different type of application and how to use them. So I've explained a lot of this in the previous classes, how you can use the different types of alignments. All right, and while we are doing, while we are putting all the design tips we are learning into practice, I need you to pay attention. All right, I'm going to explain a lot more and practicalize a lot more. All right, so a pull quote is like a short quote or excerpt pulled from the main text that's used as a visual element to highlight important ideas or draw interest to a piece.
Sorry,
Right?
David,
Yeah.
is it justify on Canva?
Yeah, there's justify on Canva.
Okay.
Yeah, look at it. Yeah. So this left, justify and right. So there's, and then this center, can you see? Look at where my mouse is. This is center. This is left. This is justified. This is right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I'll continue my slide now. Okay, so pull quotes are usually, I did something similar when I was designing that quote. If you remember from the last class, I brought out a line and just singled it out. So that's like a pull quote. But most times we use pull quotes in layout design where you have a lot of text. I just want to bring out something to highlight it. All right, so you have a lot of them in magazines and all those kind of reports and stuff like that. All right. Now, a palette is a selection of color that you choose to use for your design. If you remember when I was describing how to find colors, I said just go online and search for a type of color palette that you want. All right, so if you want a cool color palette, just type cool color palette, you'll find a lot online. Okay. So a palette is basically a selection of colors that you want to use in your design. All right. Monochrome is a color scheme that's built out of only one color, including lighter and darker tones of that color. All right. I explained how to achieve lighter and darker tones of the same color. All right. So the more you add white, you're tinting it. The more you add black, you're shading it. Okay. So this is a monochromatic color scheme. I explained analogous colors as well. It's a color scheme that's built out of 3 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Okay, so obviously, when you see 3 colors like this, these are analogous colors. I remember explaining this when I was explaining color relationships. All right. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. All right. So when you see 2 colors opposite each other on the color wheel, they are complementary colors. Okay. Next, we have a triad, right? A triad is a color scheme that's built out of 3 colors that are equally spaced around each other. So the way you have red, blue, and green, right? Red, blue, and green is typically the most popular triad, all right? So, no, sorry. Red, yellow, and blue. Sorry. Red, yellow, and blue. Red, blue, and green is RGB. That's for lights. Okay, let me explain this very shortly. Color is usually discerned in 2 ways. Pigments and light, all right? Pigments is when you have like liquid physical things that you can touch. So like poster color is pigment, all right? When you mix pigment colors, it works differently from when you mix light colors, all right? So for example, most of your LED screens, they are full of red, green, and blue bulbs, tiny, tiny bulbs, RGB bulbs, right? Red, green, and blue, all right? So when those three colors mix, they can form every single color that you can see because it's coming out in the form of light. But in pigment formats, the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. In light formats, the primary colors are red, blue, and green. Do you understand? It might not be, it will make sense to you later when we're having to design different types of things, when we have to relate CMYK to RGB, all right? I'll explain that down the line, all right? So any three colors that you pick will be triadic. If you pick this, this, and this, there will be a triad, all right? If you pick this, this, and this, it's another triad. So it doesn't always have to be blue, red, and yellow, okay? CMYK, good. CMYK, cyan, magenta, or yellow, right? It's a color model that's used for printing purposes, right? And CMYK is subtractive. It means that you begin with white and end up with black. So the more colors you add, the darker it becomes. If you've ever been to a printing press, right, you see exactly. So this is what it looks like. Yellow addition, when you add blue, when you add blue and yellow, you get green. When you add yellow and magenta, you get reddish. When you add magenta and cyan. So CMYK is the print format of color application or color usage, okay? And that's because printers print in pigment form, in CMYK formats, okay? What I explained with pigments, right? When I explained red, yellow, and blue, like I used the poster color example, right? Printers, because when the nature of the way printers are, right, they are divided into 4 colors. And those 4 colors can create every other color that we have, all right? And it's subtractive. So as you keep moving, you keep adding from white to black, white, you have to add all the colors. That's why when you go to print, for example, if you've printed before, you have to print and they tell you, oh, I want to print a jot, and they say, how many colors, right? That's because the machine is going to run every color separately. What you have in your inkjet printers is all 4 colors running simultaneously, right? CMYK, K is black, all right, in your regular inkjet printers. But if you've gone to a big printing press, those big machines, Cohort, 201, Sword, Heidelberg, or, you know, those kind of big machines, they print the colors individually, right? So you see the machines coming out in different colors. What yellow will go first, then you get, so it will be going individually. And then when everything has come, when all the colors are rolled on the paper, it's going to form what you have as a final output. That's why when you have less colors, it's less cost for printing because they only have to roll 1 color. When you have 4 colors, it's going to be more expensive because they have to roll the color 4 times. Okay, so that's the explanation for how it works. Now, when you're printing, most times when you send a design to a printer, you mostly have to send your design in CMYK formats, okay? Because that's the print format, that's the format that they recognize, especially when you are printing in offset style of printing. I'll explain that later on when we're going into the business of actual design, right? I'll explain the different types of printing, but for now, let's just move forward. We're running out of time, all right? We have RGB, right? RGB or red, blue, green, the color model that is used for on-screen purposes, right? It's additive. It means that when we mix the colors, we start with black and end up with white as more colors are added, all right? So remember I explained how your LED screen works. When you have red, blue, and green on, it's going to turn to white, right? It's how light displays color. It's different from how pigment displays color, okay? So we've gone 25, we have 25 more. Let's take a commercial break. I'm trying to think of a joke to crack. Does anyone have a joke? For 1 minute, I feel like everyone's exhausted. Is everyone exhausted? Or should I continue? Why is nobody answering?
Please, you can continue.
I'm going to answer you.
Continue.
We're all tired. I think you should just continue so that we can go. It's going to really help. Right now, eating mango to stay awake.
All right. So try your best. Yeah, it's hard work, right? But it's once you put in the work, nobody can take it away from you. Okay, let me aspire to perspire you. All right. Now, Pantone is sorry. All right, so Pantone PMS, right? Pantone matching system. Sorry, the Pantone matching system is a standardized system of colors for printing. So every Pantone shade is numbered. It makes it easier for people to reference and identify the exact shade of color. Now, let me explain how this works. For a brand, for example, think of MTN, right? MTN has, now this is very weird, and let me try to explain to you. MTN yellow, right? Or let's use Serif yellow since we have a brand, right? Let's say we want to print, right? And I have the Serif yellow. Now, if you notice the yellow on this shirt, right, is not the exact yellow that is on your phone, right? Now, that problem happens because different printing styles alter different colors many times. So when I send the same color code, now there are different issues that can happen to give you different colors. So sometimes it's either you sent in the wrong color code, which is a different problem entirely, right? Assume that we gave the exact same color code to 4 different printers, right? When they print and they bring the work back, they most likely will have different colors eventually. And that's because when they mix the colors, many times they mix it differently. Or sometimes different machines mix colors differently. Now, the Pantone matching system is like a standardized system of colors. So if I give you my Pantone color of my Serif, right? And I say, so for example, in a brand, when you have a brand identity and you say, the hex code of this yellow is hashtag, you put the number, and then you put the RGB, R26, G14, B72, right? And then you put the CMYK, C50, M. All those numbers are basically values for the different colors, right? Now, you need to go the extra mile to add the Pantone. When you give it a Pantone number, right? Anywhere in the world, because a Pantone color is printed, it's like Pantone is like ruler. It's like the ruler for colors. That's basic, simple way to explain it. So 2 cm in Nigeria is 2 cm abroad, right? If I send you a yellow design and you print it on your printer and I print it on another printer abroad, they can be different. But if I say measure 2 cm in Abuja and measure 2 cm in Los Angeles or whatever it is, right? It's going to be the exact same 2 cm. That's the purpose of this Pantone. All right, so Pantone is like a standardized system of colors for printing. So if I give you a Pantone color in America and I give you the same Pantone color in Nigeria, you're going to have the exact same results. So printers have to, so most times when you're printing like big stuff and maybe billboards and stuff, or like flyers, and you're printing like 10,000 copies and they have to use like a huge offset machine, they have to get the exact same Pantone color. So they'll be printing until they'll be adjusting the color thing until they get the exact same Pantone, right? That's the point of Pantone matching system, is to ensure that we have a standard color scheme everywhere in the world. So if you buy this, you have your Pantone. It's like buying a ruler. Once you have the ruler in your house, anywhere in the world, the Pantone color is the same. It cannot be different. All right. So warm colors are warm colors. Okay.
So, sorry, is there a difference between the Pantone colors and like the hex codes that we talk about?
Okay, so the hex codes are just to ensure that if I give you my hex code and you're using it on your phone, now, if nobody ever had to print anything, we will not need Pantone. Hex codes will work perfectly. So hex codes are like Pantone for screen.
Okay. So Pantone printing. Okay.
Exactly. So if I give you a hex code, right, in Nigeria, use the same hex code on your computer in America, you have the exact same color. But when you print it out, you cannot guarantee that. So that's why they made Pantone, to ensure that when you are printing it out, if your yellow does not look like this is not our yellow, go and find it out. So if I go to a printer and I say, I need you to print this for me, and I give them Pantone color, and I need them to come up with the exact same color I give them. So that's what Pantone. Pantone is like hex for screen, and hex is like Pantone for print. All right. All right, good. So warm colors are colors that make you think of, heat, warms, reds, yellows, oranges. They are cozier, friendlier, they're more cheerful. So you're able to add more warm colors to an image by increasing the orange tones in your image. So if you have edited a picture before and they say, make the image warmer, you notice that it will start getting orangish. When they say, make the image cooler, it will start getting bluish, right? So warm colors are bright, cool colors are dull, all right? And I've explained this to you already in the color wheel I explained the other day, right? So you can see warm colors on the left and then cool colors on the right, okay? Cool colors are colors that make you think of colder temperatures like the blues, greens, violets, they are calming. I explained this already, all right? So we have cool colors on this end. Color theory, I explained the color theory. Color theory is how colors make people feel a response. So different colors have different connotations, and we tend to associate them with different things. For example, blue, right? Blue tends to be associated with trust and dependability and stuff like that. Let me go online and show you something that will help you out. If you go online and you just search color psychology, right? I'm going to share my browser screen with you now. Can you see my browser screen?
Yes.
All right. So when if you Google color psychology, you're going to see how people associate like the psychology of colors. Now, color psychology is not a hard and fast rule, it's just a guide into how people use colors generally. You can many times deviate from the color psychology because you have a goal that you want to achieve. But as a beginner, it's advisable to start with this. Okay, so different colors. You can Google this and just figure out. I'll send the document that has all of this to the group. For now, let me just continue with the slide. All right. So I just showed you this because it's something you can Google on the internet and find by yourself. All right. So color psychology. All right. Or here they use the word color theory. All right. So I'm just going to skip all of this. A gradient is a gradual change in color from one tone to another. So I explained gradient already. You have gradients on Canva where you have two colors merging to form a single kind of type thing. Kind of basically red to yellow, mixing two colors to form, not mixing it to form one color, but mixing where you can see the two different colors blend into each other. All right, so the blending is what makes gradients different from just mixing colors and each forming a new color. All right, so there are two major types of gradients. We have the radial gradients and the linear gradients. All right, so radial gradients is going to be increasing in concentric circles, while the linear gradient is going to move from left to right or right to left, up to down. It can be diagonal, but it's linear. All right, so opacity is the degree of transparency that an element has. So the lower the opacity, the more transparent it is. There's opacity in Canva, I explained that to you. So as the more you increase the opacity, the more transparent it becomes. All right. So resolution is basically the amount of detail that an image has. So generally speaking, the higher the resolution, the better your images appear. So many times when you see that images are blurry, right, it's because the resolution is not great. Okay, so you have exactly this is what poor resolution looks like. This is what a high resolution looks like. All right, so ensure that when you are using images, you find images that have high resolution. How can you find images with high resolution? Let me just show you on the internet really quickly. You see what you have here, right? If you look closely, you see this thing where we have 680 by 595. Can you see it? Let me know if you can see it. Just say yes. Anybody?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, if you can see
I
it,
can't see it.
you can't.
No, I can't. Well, okay.
Exactly. Now, what you have there is Google is telling you the resolution of that image.
Resolution, right.
Exactly. So the resolution of this image is 680 pixels by 595 pixels, right? So if you're trying to find an image on the internet, if If you're trying to find an image on the internet, maybe what should I find? Goods, right? An image of the goods, and I want a high resolution image. Now, look at this. Can you see this is 3,600 by 3,600? It means, and you can see when images have a higher resolution, they take longer to load, and you can already see it from here.
Right.
600 by 3,000. So this image has a high resolution. So it's good for printing purposes and stuff like that. And it makes your image look sharper. So most times, but the files are usually larger. Okay. So high resolution images have a larger number of pixels. They tend to be larger in size and they tend to load slower on the internet. All right. So if you see this is 1,500 by 840. You can see it has loaded already, right? Because it's much smaller than the other one. 1,500 by 840. Let me see this. And 1,930 by 1,335. Let's check this one. Can you see how this one is not even clear? It's 245 by 28. Okay, so the higher the resolution, the better the quality of the image. The lower the resolution, poorer the quality of the image. All right. Let me proceed to the slides.
I'm sorry, what do you think is the standard resolution to use for your design? Is there any standard resolution?
Okay. It depends on what you're. If you are printing, right, try to get the highest resolution possible. Right? But if you are designing for screen, maybe for social media and stuff like that, anywhere between 500 by 500 and 1,000, 2,000 by 2,000 is good enough, right? For example, your Instagram posts, the Instagram sheet, the Instagram layout design is 1080 by 1080 pixels. So if you find an image that is about 1080 by 1080 pixels, that image is good enough for Instagram. All right, so it's going to be sharp enough. If it's if the resolution is higher, it's still going to be fine, but it shouldn't be lower. Okay. But if you are going to print, right, ensure that you have a very high resolution, because when you're printing, many times the resolution can be compromised if you don't have a good DPI, that's or PPI, pixels per inch for screen, and then so it's really important to have high resolution images, especially for print. So if it's printing, make sure it's higher. If it's for screen, it can be moderate between 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels and stuff like that. So there's no standard, but you just need to find whichever you're using for the purpose of which you're using it.
Okay, thank you very much.
So contrast, I explained contrast already. It's like the degree of difference between two juxtaposed elements. Sometimes it may not be juxtaposed, but in this context, let's use that. So some other common types of contrast are dark versus light, thin versus thick, rough versus smooth. All right. Remember when I was explaining contrast, I said the biggest way you can explain contrast is difference. So now this is a better one to use, degree of difference. So if you want to increase the degree of difference, so look at this image. This image has a higher contrast than this. This looks dull, this looks sharp. You can see the whites very distinct from the black. Here it feels like all shades of green. Yeah, it's like Revelation 7 says it should either be hot or cold. If you are lukewarm, it's period to green. Right? So you just need to, when it's contrast, you have hot and cold, you have really, really high degrees of contrast, high degrees of difference.
It's 22 hours.
All right, so we spent 1 hour already, right? I feel like everybody's saturated. Our saturation already. So what I'll give you an assignment, right? And we'll continue from here on Wednesday, right? And the assignments, I'm going to share it to the group. I'll share it tonight.
Thursday.
Sorry, tomorrow. Oh man, that's true. It's tomorrow. Good. So I'm going to share the assignment with you today, right? I want you to create 5 banner designs for 5 of your favorite design terms, right? 5 banner designs for the 5 of your favorite design terms, and you're going to do a description of them. Okay?
Favorite design terms. I didn't get a design what?
Design terms. Any of the words are placed here.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand? So I'm going to show you a sample. I'll give you a sample and I want you to do something. You don't have to do something similar, but just give an idea of what I want you to do. Okay?
Trust me to just this.
All right, no problem. Okay, so we'll continue from saturation tomorrow because everybody's obviously saturated. And then I'll give you the assignment today. So work on them. I want you to share this on Instagram as well, right? Post this online. I need you to post your work because it's going to build your confidence. Number one. Number two, it's going to help people that you know or people that know you know that you are good at design, right? If you don't feel like tagging design with you, no problem. Just post online. As you post, send it to me. Let me know that you posted. It's very compulsory. It's not, I'm not begging you. It's compulsory. You have to. Okay? You have to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Please. I'm begging you and making it compulsory at the same time because, but you have to, please. So this assignment ensure that
This is ironic.
ensure that you post it online. All right. Let me stop sharing my screen so that I can see my face. Okay. So I think we are good to go.
Please explain the assignment again. I didn't get you.
Okay, I'll send a sample online. 5 of your favorite design terms, TERMS. So out of all the 33 that I explained today, I want you to pick 5. 5 that minister to you, 5 that you just feel like, oh my God, I resonate with this so much. Oh, it's just
Minister to you. Wow.
whatever it is, right? 5 of your favorite design terms, and I want you to create an Instagram post design for it, right? You put the name, you put a description of it, and you put a diagram of what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to let me do one sample for you, all right, to give you an idea of what I want you to do. Okay, do we have time for that?
Yeah.
Yes.
A little,
Yes. Yes.
Right, so let's assume that the design term I want to use is what should I use? I really like contrast actually. I don't know why. Right, so contrast, maybe contrast is my favorite. All right, so I'm just going to come here now. Everything I've taught you, I need you to put to practice. Okay, so I'm going to create my heading because obviously contrast is my heading. All right, now let me just take it up here. Don't forget, keep your text within this space. Please and please and please. Please, please, please and please. I beg you once again. All right. Now, because it's a headline, it's obviously going to be the biggest. All right. Now, my subheading or my body text, because obviously I think it's going to be body text because there's no other type of text that I'm having here. All right, so I'm just going to come here and paste it. All right, so what is contrast? The degree of difference between two juxtaposed elements. Now I'm going to edit this to between, right? Because sometimes they might not be juxtaposed. Okay, so let's just say I'm keeping this left aligned because obviously everything's aligned. Right, so this is obviously going to be subheader, right? Whichever one is the second one. So it's not necessarily a subheader and body copy because there's no other one coming after it. So whichever one you call it is fine. All right. Now it's for my description. Okay. I'm going to describe contrast. All right. Now how am I going to describe contrast? There are many ways you can describe contrast. Don't forget, the internet is your friend. So if I was the one, how would I do this assignment? Let me go online, right? And I'm going to share my browser screen with you. Contrast. What does the internet have to say about contrast? Interesting. Many things to say, right? So I'm just going to find one and adapt it really nicely. All right. So I like this one. Many circles and one square. All right. So I'm going to come back to my Canva.
The balloon one, David.
Come again. What do you say? So I'm going to copy that image, all right, because I just like it. You don't have to copy it, but I'm just showing you my method. Okay? I'm going to paste it. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create elements. There are many ways you can do this, right? You can use many different elements, and I want you to make it as nice as possible. Okay.
I'm so sorry, David. Sorry to cut you short. Please, how did you duplicate? In one of the assignments I struggled with duplicating
Can you see it?
the assignment that had many circles. I can't see it.
Where my mouse is. So let me start from the beginning. I just created the circle. Look up here. This is me in the circle.
Okay, yes.
Once I click duplicate, it's going to duplicate. So there's another element that's been created. So now, because I don't want to be duplicating one by one, I'll just select both of them and then duplicate it. So it's going to duplicate two of them together.
Okay.
I want to duplicate four of them. I'm just going to.
Right.
Now, you can see that it's not evenly spaced. So, and I want it to be evenly spaced. I would have used my eyes to do it, but I just want to teach you the right way to do it. Okay. So, drag this to ensure that it's evenly spaced. Okay. All these tiny details matter, right? Because it's going to affect what your design will look like. All right. If you don't pay attention to these things, your design will not be good. It's not the cause, it's just the reality. So, all right. So I'm just going to delete that. Right. I've created a number of circles I want to replace. Now, because they are evenly spaced out, I can just adjust them together. Okay. Obviously, there are many ways to create contrast. All right. So let me add. Now, another way to, if I want to do the same thing without having to use that rectangle, I can just duplicate this whole thing, right? And ensure that this is right in the middle. This whole layer. So I'm sure that we have the exact same size. So, let's break this down. Because I'm trying to explain contrast. All right. Make the changes to a rectangle. Now, remember I explained contrast. You can do different contrast can happen in different ways. I'm going to change all the colors of this to yellow. Depending on what you want to do, whichever one is interesting for you. Right. If I change this to yellow as well, the contrast is still going to be created because I'm creating a contrast with the shape. All right. But if I want the contrast to be even more, I can add an extra element by making a darker color. All right. If I want to create more contrast, I can just even make it much smaller than the rest. Do you get? So basically, I've done my contrast. All right. Now, because this is, I want to centralize this to here. So something like this is what I want you to do. Okay. Now, this is what I want you to do. I want you to add your name. Right. You come here. Add your subheading. What's your name? Right now, I want it to be small. Okay, just rotate it to 90 degrees. Okay. Make it just a little bigger. All right, and drag it to the end here to this corner. Can you see how my
Alignments.
aligned? Please, for God's sake, let your design be aligned. All right. So, sharp. This is what I want you to do. You do for 5 elements of design or 5 design terms. If it's kerning you want to do, you do the kerning. If it's ascenders and descenders you want to do, you do ascenders and descenders. If it's whichever one you like. All right. Are we good?
Yes.
Now your design does not need to. You can add efficacy to it, or you can put a nice background. It's just that if you don't overdo the efficacy, that your design does not look nice again. All right. So be gentle, be safe, don't go overboard, and just make sure it's actually decent. Okay. So if you want to do a background, make sure you use a background that is not going to be distracting your design. All right. If you don't want to use a background, all good and fine. You can keep it plain white. Whichever one is fine. All right. Now you can see that I had to adjust this to ensure that the C is up there in the corner. So, cool. All right. Any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, how do you select all the colors, all the shapes rather, not colors?
No, just
There was a
just press your mouse and drag.
okay.
If you don't want to do that, once you click on one element, you can press shift down. As you click on the rest, it will be selected.
Okay. So that way you can drag or to adjust to align rather.
Exactly. Or another way, if you want to do it and all your elements are scattered like this, you can just select everything, right? Come to position, center. So everything will be center aligned, although the difference here is still very plenty. Okay. So imagine that we had plenty up and down like this. Right? So first start by aligning everything middle, right? I'll do middle here again. Middle, right? Then I'll now start doing the okay, this is center aligned already. I'll do this. Center, I'll do this. Center, I'll do this. Center, right? So now they are all aligned on up and down. The only problem will now be the spacing in between. And you have to check to make sure that it's accurate. Do you understand?
All right, yeah, fair enough.
Any
Thank
questions
you very
before we
much.
continue?
So how do you perfect the spacing between? Please, can you? Sorry.
No, that one you have
Just
to put your ruler. The exact same thing.
you create another shape from a ruler, then
Another shape.
Yeah, that one you did the other time between the circles, but okay.
exactly. Okay, well, I can't wait for the note to come out. I missed the explanation of the
Okay, I'll send you the PDF I use for this class actually, so you can make reference to it. And you can copy and paste the text from it if you want.
Okay. Then also the recording for today's class as
Yeah,
well,
I'll post the recording tonight.
and the assignment.
Yeah, the assignments. Any other question? All right, so let's call it a day. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
Same time, same place.
Thank you, David.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.